If you're producing video content, live streaming, or you just want to level up your Zoom meetings, then a great way to do that is by improving your audio quality. And if you're in the market for a new microphone, then one of the microphones that you may be considering is the Shure MV7. I've been using this microphone now for around about 2 months, and so this is my review. Hi, welcome to Take One Tech, and my name is Alec Johnson. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about the Shure MV7 and how I've found using it, and tell you a little bit about the pros and cons and the way that I'm personally using it myself. So I was looking for a new microphone to improve the quality primarily of my Zoom calls, but also I had some video production work to do, so I was looking for a solution for that as well. I did look at a number of different microphones, but there's one feature I think about the MV7 which makes it kind of unique. So of the microphones that I looked at, the sort of top runners, if you like, in my sort of price bracket that I was looking for was the Rode NT USB, which was around about $100. And the thing about that is sort of given away in its name. It is a USB microphone, so it will plug straight into the laptop, which is something that I kind of wanted that feature. I didn't want to get into having a load of audio signal processing gear to go between the microphone and the laptop, which is what you have to do with some XLR microphones, for example. So XLR being the type of plug that you have in the back of the microphone. Having said that, one of the other microphones that came highly recommended was around about the same price, and that was the Rode PodMic. Again, about $100, but it was an XLR microphone, and so would require some sort of interface between it and the computer. So the thing about the MV7 which makes it kind of unique is that it does actually have both USB and XLR. So if I just lift it up slightly, excuse the sound, you can see that it's got the USB here, but it's also got the spare sort of 3-pin XLR plug on the back. And what that means is, for the time being, I've got the convenience of a USB mic that I can plug into my laptop. And although we're not traveling much these days, it is something that I used to do when we were more able to travel, and at some point maybe traveling again. So having that sort of compact form factor that I can carry with me and just plug it in and go is something that was quite appealing. However, I am starting to do slightly more video production now, and obviously starting this channel, which is actually really a spin-off from the video production that I was doing. I'm thinking that at some point further down the line I may want to plug into some sort of external device, something like the Rodecaster Pro or some other audio interface. And by having both the USB and the XLR, it gives me the flexibility to do both at some point down the line when I need to. And interestingly, not that I need it at the moment, you can actually use both the USB and the XLR at the same time, so that you can record to two separate devices, for example. Again, not something I'm doing at the moment, but nice to know that you can do that in the future. In terms of the build quality, it is feels really sturdy. There is one thing that came up on a number of other review channels when I was scrolling through, looking through all the different microphones, building up my sort of short list. And one thing was the wind filter on the microphone. Now, I will say that this is actually not the standard wind filter. So this is the original wind filter, windshield. And the issue with it was that although the microphone is a really high quality microphone, this actually does not quite feel so high quality. And in fact, when you have this windshield on, you'll notice that there is slightly more popping and slightly more sibilance as well. So this windshield does a much better job of cutting that down, and you can actually feel it that it is a much more denser foam. And it's no surprise really, because this is the windshield off the MV7's sort of bigger brother or sister, the Shure SM7B, which is a bit like the sort of gold standard in podcasting microphones, I think, these days. You see everybody using them. Again, I ruled that one out because not only is it a much more expensive microphone at $350, something like that, I think, but it is, again, XLR only. And so I would have needed some extra gear, some extra equipment that I just didn't want to have into my sort of setup at this stage. The Shure MV7 itself, though, is more expensive than those other two microphones I mentioned. It's around about $250, but the windshield you can buy separately, the RK345. I'll put links, obviously, to all of these things in the description, and that's just $10 more. And I think for $10, it does actually make a difference. Now, I can actually show you what the difference is, obviously. So, personally, I think that the P's are not too pronounced and there's not too much popping. However, as you will see, if I just mute for 1 second, personally, I think there is a bit more popping and sibilance with this windshield. So I'll put the other one back on. This is not supposed to be an exhaustive audio test because I'm not an audio engineer by any stretch, and this is sort of the first semi-professional grade microphone that I've owned, so I've not got a huge amount to compare it to. However, I can tell that it sounds good. And that's the sort of level of this review, really. It's for somebody like me who's just looking for something to improve the quality of the video audio or audio in meetings. And so this is my sort of my version of that, if you like. So I'll just switch back to the other pop shield now. So we're back to the RK345 windshield, and I think it makes a little bit of difference, and I also think it sort of actually looks better rather than the short one that was on there originally. Now I can just show you the box. I'm not obviously going to do a full unboxing because, as you can see, it's unboxed. It has been for a couple of months. However, you may like to just see the packaging. I know that some people do like to see those things. So if I just go to a quick top-down shot, I can show you it comes in a box, much like this. And inside the box is another box, and inside the box you get simply a quick start guide and the microphone itself. There is also two cables in there. Actually, there is a one that plugs into a standard USB port, and then there is also another that plugs into a USB-C port. Now on the back, I know that a lot of people have complained that it is a micro USB or mini USB on the back. Personally, I don't really think it matters how it plugs into there because they provide the cables anyway, so that isn't really an issue for me. The other thing to note is that it does have a monitor output from the headphone for your headphones that plugs into the back, which is a nice feature. I've obviously just got this on a cheap $15 boom arm. Seems to do the trick. You can get all sorts of fancy boom arms these days that cost a lot more, but for me, this seems to work just fine. It holds it exactly where I want it. The microphone does have a good weight to it, so it does feel sturdy and heavy and sort of a nice weight in the hand, but at the same time, there's no issue with it being supported by just a standard boom arm that you can get from Amazon. So in terms of the microphone itself, another thing that makes it unique is that although it is a USB mic, you do get some of the sort of control that you might normally expect to get with an XLR microphone going through an audio mixer or audio interface. So what I'll do now is I'll just share with you the software that you can do this with. So here, this is the ShurePlus MOTIV app. Now I should point out that there has actually been a firmware update in the last month or so. So some of the videos online might not include a couple of features that I'll show you at the end. Before I do this though, I'll also just quickly mention that at the moment I have this running through a audio interface called Audio Hijack Pro. I'll put a link to this in the description as well. This is great for Zoom meetings. What it actually does is this is not a Shure product. It is made by Rogue Amoeba, the software company. And what it allows you to do is take any audio source from your computer and route them through various processes and so on. So here you can see that I have the input device here is the just here you have an input device which is the Shure MV7. From there, we are going along, and I have it going through this function here called denoise. Now, at the moment, it's inactive, but What I do when I'm on meetings is I do often have an air conditioning unit running and other fans and things like that. And so I can run it through this denoise, and I'll give you a demonstration of that afterwards. And it actually just cuts out all of that noise and allows me to get a clean signal out. I then have it going through a set of meters, so I can see the output from the microphone. And this is more just sort of a visual cue as well to make sure the levels are okay. And then this runs into an output, which is named Zoom audio device. And this is what goes into my Zoom or into, I also link to this in Teams, my Microsoft Teams. So when I'm in a meeting and you select the audio source, this just shows up as the source. So I could go direct to the microphone itself, or I could select the output source there. But the beauty of this is, I don't know if you've been on a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting and you want to share something that is playing on your computer, like a video or something from YouTube or something like that with the other team members, and they can't hear it. Well, this makes it very easy because you can select a source, either an application or just all the system audio. This is a switch, so I can select between the two of them. I can change the volume of it. And I've got some meters here so that I can see what is playing and how it's looking. And then this also just feeds into this audio device. So that allows me to share not just my microphone with the noise cancelling, but also the system audio over my meetings. And from there, I also have that going down to a meter in the menu bar so that I can monitor the levels in the menu bar. And then I also have an option here to go to an MP3 so I can just record whatever the call is, obviously getting permission from anybody who's on the call at the time, but it just enables me to record the audio there as well if we're not already recording in Zoom itself. Now what I'll do is I'll just show you how the denoising works, just for interest. So if I switch my aircon on, then you may well hear it kicking in. And then if I go down to this denoise here, it's simply a case of you probably can hear this background noise at the moment from the wind from the fan. So if I click learn noise, okay, hopefully you will have heard a drop in the ambient noise in the background there, and then you can adjust the level of noise reduction by moving these sliders up and down. Now, one thing you will notice is that if you have a really loud background noise that you're trying to cut out, then it will affect the audio quality slightly of the voice, which maybe you can pick up yourself as I slide this backwards and forwards. So for the purpose of demonstrating the actual mic, I'm going to try and reduce the background noise as much as possible so that I can actually show you directly the effect of the changes that you can make to the audio setup. Using the actual Shure app. Now bear in mind that if you are going to use something like this with any denoising, then you want to make sure that you've got your mic set up first before you go on to actually adjust the denoising, because obviously any changes that you make with the Shure app is at the beginning of the signal chain, and so it will affect the signal coming in. So with that said, if I go over to the Shure MOTIV app, there are a number of different presets that you can use, but then there's the option to mute the mic on here, like that. There's also a button actually on the mic itself at the front here that allows you to mute, and you can see if I mute the mic, then it toggles it on the app as well. So you've got that sort of visual clue if you've toggled it on mute on the mic itself. There's also the mic gain, which you can change from here. So there you can hear the difference that makes. And then this is the difference between the monitors, in-ear monitors, or your headphones rather, coming out of the back, and how much the balance is between what you're hearing from the mic as opposed to what you're hearing from the sound. So anything that you're playing on your computer or anything like that, or the feedback from, the sound from the Zoom calls, that will be played back over the headphones as well. So this is basically just adjusting that balance between what I'm hearing in my ear, basically. Now that can also be done on the microphone itself. If I have a look at the top-down view quickly, excuse any noise as I move the microphone about. But what you can see here is we've got this little button which has a picture of a headphone and microphone, and if I press it, it toggles between either the microphone, so now it's showing green there for the microphone. Let me just switch this off a moment. So you can see that the lights are showing up to show the levels on the mic, and that's actually the mic gain. So if I was to swipe along this touch pad here, you can see that that is adjusting the mic gain. And then similarly, if I press, it changes to the orange lights. Excuse the quality of the picture here, but that changes to the orange lights, and I can adjust the volume. And actually what that's doing is it's also adjusting the volume, the system volume, in fact. Now, if I hold and press that button, then it actually ends up with, you'll see that there's, perhaps it's not showing up properly, but there's some green lights on this side and orange lights on this side. And this is effectively replicating that balance between the mic level and the audio level in the headphones. And this is adjusted by sliding from left to right. So you won't be able to hear anything, but this is changing how much of my own voice I'm hearing as feedback in the monitor compared to how much of the system sound that I'm hearing. Now, it isn't a direct sort of one-to-one correlation between swiping from one side to another. It's actually, you sort of have to swipe like that before it, for it to change between one and the other. So it's, you've got several swipes of the surface there, represents a whole movement from fully monitoring or fully system sound. So that's kind of just how that works. And there, yes, you can see the mute button there that I mentioned earlier. So coming back to the interface, in the interface as well, we've also got an EQ. It's pretty basic. There are just 4 settings. So we've got a flat EQ, and hopefully you'll be able to hear some sort of difference in the levels in my voice as I change these. We've also got a high pass filter. This one is called Presence Boost. So this is just basically cutting off some of the lower levels. This one's boosting some of the mid to high levels. And then also this one, which is called High Pass and Presence Boost, which is basically a combination of those. We've also got a built-in compressor. So compression totally off. Here is EQ totally off. And then we've got basically 4 levels of compression that we can go through. So either just, this is on light compression, this is on medium compression, and this is on heavy compression. And it's a very good microphone for blocking out sort of external sounds. So I'm in quite a really untreated room, to be honest. So it's less than ideal for recording in. It's essentially, I'm in a basement, a concrete basement with tiles on the floor. So acoustically, not ideal. But I think the microphone does a really great job of cutting out a lot of the excess noise from outside, from the sort of reverberation in the room, if you like. And yeah, I think it's doing quite a good job at that personally. But you can be the judge yourself. Certainly when I've tried recording with other microphones, for my video content previously, I was using a Rode Video Mic Go, which is a great little mic for, on top of my camera, and certainly good for that purpose. But when I was trying to use it indoors in this environment, even when I had sort of suspended it, quite close, using it kind of like a sort of mini shotgun mic, there was still a lot of background noise. And it's to be expected given my environment. It's no criticism of that particular microphone as such, just the way that I was using it. So the features that were added into this app as part of the most recent firmware update were these 2 things here. And this is basically to add a certain behavior to the LED strip, which is on the camera itself. So the first one is live meters. And what this does is it basically turns the lighting strip, the strip of LEDs that we saw earlier, it actually turns those into live meters. So if I were to switch that on now and then turn briefly back to my top-down camera, then what you may be able to see now is, as I'm speaking, the LED strip along the top here is actually acting as a meter. And they light up as you're speaking or as they're sensing sound, and then there is a single LED that stops at whatever the peak is that you've reached. So it's just a little way to have have a visual cue of your levels. Personally, the way I use this microphone, which is generally slightly below me pointing away, I don't tend to see it. However, I know that a lot of people do have microphones suspended above them, and so in that sense, I guess it would be more sort of eye level. But for me, or I could just turn it around as well, obviously, but for me, the way I use it, I prefer to have it so that I can easily just touch the buttons from this side. But still, it's a nice little feature. So the other feature that was added, if I just quickly pop back to the app, was night mode. And all that does is basically, you may be able to see it if I come back here again. So the night mode simply dims and brightens the LEDs. So that's about it for the custom features. However, there are a couple of other ways that you can use the microphone. So that is the sort of the manual settings. However, if I go back to my screen sharing a moment, so that is the manual settings. And by the way, you can save these as presets. So if you want to have a particular setup for meetings, but then you might have another setup that you use for recording, then that is a way that you could do that. There is also an auto level setting, and that is much simpler, where you still have the mute there, you still have the mix, but basically you're just telling it where the position is. So is it near or is it further away? So sometimes, you know, when I'm recording these videos, then I don't actually mind having the microphone in shot, but you may want to be on a meeting, for example. Excuse any noise while I just, do beg your pardon, move this out of the way. You may want to have the microphone positioned further away from you, for example, like on a Zoom call or something like that, so that it isn't quite dominating the view. And in that sense, you would use this far. So you can judge for yourself how well that sounds. That's around about 20 centimeters, of nearly a foot away from my mouth to the end of the microphone there. So that gives you an idea of how that sounds. If I just bring it back and we go back to the near sound, I think it does quite a good job of getting those levels right under those circumstances. Then also you can change the tone from neutral to bright, which gives you slightly more of the top end, or you can change to dark. And so these are basically replicating those slightly deeper level manual settings that we had before. If I just switch back, where we could change the EQ, the levels here, and then the compression. So basically that is just replicating those, but it's just doing it automatically. There's also a limiter, so that means that it will stop any high loudness, any loudness that's going to affect the sound quality. So that is the Shure MOTIV app. Now I should say also, the other thing that is interesting about this mic is that it does work on iOS as well. So if you are using Clubhouse, for example, and you want to level up your audio on there and have people wondering how you're sounding so great over a phone, then this is a great mic to do that with. I believe that they do sell a cable from Shure itself to go into iOS, but actually if you just bear with me 1 second, you can actually get for a couple of dollars a connector like this, which is a sort of lightning with a USB. So if you've got one of those, you can just plug this directly into your phone and audio comes through the headphones and you speak into the microphone, and yeah, it sounds great. The Shure MOTIV app is also on iOS, and so that can really help. You know, you've got the same sort of level of adjustment on there as well. And in fact, there is also a built-in recorder in the iOS app as well. So if you want to record audio using your Shure MV7, you can do that directly within the app on iOS, which I think is a great sort of feature. So that about covers my experience of using the microphone. Overall, I've got to say I've been really happy with it. I think it's been a worthwhile investment. It certainly will last a long time as far as I can estimate. Certainly Shure products are known for their robustness and their long life. The only one caveat is I am conscious, obviously, as soon as you start adding more things like firmware and LEDs and things like that and touch strips, then those are the sort of things that perhaps might fail first. So whereas the Shure SM7B and other similar iconic iPhone microphones that have been around for decades do last for decades, I do wonder about things like touch strips. But for now, I think it's been a good value purchase, and I'm very happy with the sound quality that I've got from it. The benefits of having both the USB and the XLR inputs mean that it's going to be good for what I'm doing at the moment, but also gives me that flexibility when I do want to upgrade my sort of signal chain, if you like, for my audio. And then that feature of being able to use it with a iOS device is also a bit of an added bonus. I do think probably for the money, when you're spending $250 on a microphone, perhaps that extra, I think it's $12, something like that, for the RK345 windshield is also a worthwhile investment. Well, I hope that's been useful. If you have found it useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be creating a lot more content like this with reviews of tech gear and applications that I've used with a Mac focus over the coming weeks and months. And I'm hoping to build out this channel into something that will be a real resource for people like you. If you've got any questions or comments about this microphone in particular, then of course don't forget to leave a comment down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And obviously all of the information related to this and anything else that I've mentioned will be in the description as well. So in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.